What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new futuristic sci-fi film, Upgrade. Upgrade is written and directed by Leigh Whannell, stars Logan Marshall Green, Betty Gabriel, and Harrison Gilbertson. The movie tells the story of a man and his wife who in the future, as augmentation to the human body becomes more and more popular, and people begin to upgrade themselves as people with screens in their arms or all kinds of different upgrades. After a horrendous accident happens and his wife is killed and he is forced to be paralyzed, a certain CEO of a massive company tells him that he's created this new thing called STEM that can be placed on his spinal cord where it was broken to repair it and give him full ability to use his body again. However, the thing that he doesn't know is that STEM can actually talk to him and sort of has a mind of its own. So while he's utilizing his new body to hunt down the people that killed his wife, he is also slowly realizing the power that STEM gives him as a being, the abilities that he is able to have because of how well STEM is able to utilize his body by taking control of it. I genuinely think the concept for this movie is the best thing about it. The idea that you could put an implant in someone's body, that they could give permission to utilize their body to its fullest extent in fights or in vision or in any sort of different way, is extremely interesting. It makes for very, very cinematic sequences throughout the film, and the idea of it is something that is a phenomenal plot device for a movie. And then with that said, the direction in the movie from Whannell is also pretty solid. He handles the action sequences extremely well. They utilize this very interesting Steadicam type of footage where the camera stays very steady on Logan Marshall Green while the entire fight sequence is going on because his movements are so robotic when STEM takes control, and it makes for really, really awesome sequences. The movie does have a few decent comedic sequences as well because STEM's relationship with Gray, the character that Logan Marshall Green plays, is somewhat funny. They definitely have moments where they sort of have different opinions of things or different ways that a situation should be handled, and it makes for some fun moments for the crowd. It's able to give you sort of that B-movie comedy, and along with that in the action, there is some really, really hyper-violent B-movie gore, like they made prosthetic heads so blood could go everywhere, things like that. And those sequences are very welcomed in the telling of the story, because this movie isn't particularly violent. There aren't constant fight sequences and people being murdered throughout the entire film. They're just very small bursts of extreme violence, and they fit very well with the storytelling. Being as the movie only has a 90-minute runtime, it does have a pretty good pace because it has to keep moving. That being said, following the death of his wife in the very beginning of the movie, I think that the film's sort of dreadful aspect is very well done. Logan Marshall Green really gives the only performance that, in my opinion, is sort of worth talking about in the film. He does a really solid job, but I think the best performance that we get from him, other than the funny, more entertaining sequences with STEM, is the sequences before STEM becomes part of the story, where he is just extremely depressed and hates his life because he sells it so well, and I think that the storytelling there makes it so the rest of the film is able to work a little better. Now, to get to what's wrong with this movie, I do want to preface this by saying I enjoyed this film. It definitely was fun. It's a decent movie because it's gonna sound like I'm ripping into it pretty hard now, but the writing of this movie tore it down so much. There are so many extremely bland and cliche lines throughout this film, and along with that, the story is so insanely predictable with this extremely interesting concept that could have made for arguably like an A+ movie if they would have utilized it well, made for what was such a by-the-book story with such an interesting concept that could have gone so much farther and more in-depth. It was just far too easy to figure out where the story was going, who the villain was, blah blah blah, figuring out all the little things that we weren't supposed to know as quickly as we were able to figure them out. And that being said, the other issue, which I think is even worse than that, is the tone of this movie. This movie has no idea what kind of movie it wants to be. It is all over the place. On the one hand, it seems like it wants to kind of be like an old school Tromaville B-movie sort of action comedy that's really gory but is there to sort of be that funny aspect of what it's like to just like overdo everything and make it all crazy. So on one hand, it wants to be that in some scenes. On other hands, it wants to be this dark science fiction revenge tale about this guy who wants to like get revenge for the people that took his wife away from him. And then on the other side, it kind of wants to be this like deep, dark neon noir film that has something to say about humanity and who we really are. But none of those things mesh together. They all have to be, you have to go all in on one or you can't. You can't mix and match these three different things because they just don't work at all. And I think when this movie's credits roll, that's how a lot of people feel walking out of it probably, is they're like, I had fun and like the movie was enjoyable, but I just don't really understand why they made all of these mishmash tonal scenes and just put them together in one movie that had such an interesting concept. I'm gonna give Upgrade a C+. Like I said, I definitely did enjoy this movie. It's a fun film, it has some really cool action, some decent comedy, stuff like that, but the tone in the film is so all over the place that it's hard for me to give it a good grade because I couldn't get invested in what it was trying to do because it was very much destroying the storytelling in the weird mesh of genres that it chose to combine. It would have been a B-, but I'm giving it the C+, strictly on the fact that I think that this concept could have made for an absolutely amazing movie, and instead it leveled so heavily into mediocrity. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of Upgrade, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.